Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. This morning I want to look at the chart of Frank Sinatra, legendary singer, big band, crooner. Don't forget to hit like, guys, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Share it if you like. All right. Pull up my software. All right. So he was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. I guess that's outside of New York. Sag Sun conjunct Mercury. Mercury combust, basically, um, in the second house. Now here's another one with the houses are going to be a little skewed because the ascendant's at 28 degrees Libra, 28, 22, and it's Libra. So most of the first house is actually in Scorpio, which, since I'm talking about his ascendant already, you can feel that. I mean, he has a Libra ascendant, but there is a strong feeling of Scorpio in there. You get that with late degree, obviously. With late degree, any sign, you're going to get most of the following sign in there. But late degree Libra is going to feel pretty scorpionic on the ascendant because most of his first house is Scorpio. And he had that vibe, obviously. The power, the sexuality, the intensity. Very Sagittarian as well. Sagittarius is just so cool, man. They just have that vibe, that swag, that hey, cool, yeah. I'm sorry if I'm not doing a good impression. Too mercurial to be Sagittarian, but anyway. Yeah, Sag, second house, and this is very appropriate for a singer. The second house is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in Pisces, so it's in domicile and good dignity in the fifth house. So second lord in fifth house. Fifth house is a house of performance, of entertainment, of games, children, education. But main thing here for Frank Sinatra's entertainment and performance. Right. So that's very prominent, you know, for a singer. His moon is in Pisces also, so very creative as well. Jupiter in Pisces, very creative. Jupiter conjunct Chiron, no less, and there's a tight square between the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Chiron. And that's good in a way because Jupiter then is bonifying the Sun, meaning it's making contact because Jupiter rules is the dispositor of the Sun. So it's good if it's making contact. The square, though, is tense. And if you take in Chiron here also into the square, one of the things that's significant about Frank Sinatra is that when he was born, he was removed with forceps that damaged his ear and his face and his neck. So that's a chironic issue. And throughout his life, he has periodic like health issues having to do with his throat, his face, his head. The sun doesn't specifically. The sun is just its overall vitality. To look at the head or the body, the head. I guess the ascendant lord would be the head and the body together. What's interesting is that you have a divided first house. So I'm gonna not strictly look at Venus, but Venus and Mars, because most of the first house is Scorpio, and he's another one. Venus and Mars. This happened with Nietzsche too, which I believe was a big part of Nietzsche's insanity. Frank did not go insane, but there is a division here between this very proud Mars and Leo in the 10th house, which is similar to mine, actually. I mean, mine's conjunct the MC in Leo and the ascendant lord, but still, it's very prominent. It's very high in the sky, Mars and Leo. very proud, very aggressive, Mars and Leo, and then Venus in Capricorn. It's sesquic square, I guess it's called, a square and a half of each other. So that's a tense aspect. That's going to create a lot of inner tension. And he was known for his violent outbursts. And there's a few different areas we could look at that for. But this also just creates a natural kind of schism within him, a division, a tension that is quite evident. Let's see here. He fought with his mother apparently up until she died. And we could see that through the fourth house lord, which is Saturn, third and fourth, is not in good dignity here in Cancer. It is in detriment, and it's retrograde, and it's got a wide conjunction with Pluto. So there was definitely some abuse going on with him and his mother. This is, you know, his main ascendant lord is Venus. There's opposition to a debilitated Saturn. It is making an aspect to its domicile sign of Capricorn. So that's not bad for Venus, but I'm sure his mother loved him, but they fought, you know, so it's not like outright, you know, violent. She apparently she knocked him around and they fought a lot, but that also apparently made Frank Sinatra very steel-willed, as they say, at least according to what I've read in his Wikipedia. The moon itself doesn't seem to be too bad. It's in the fifth house in Pisces, but I guess the main thing around that is that Saturn conjunct Pluto, opposite Venus, is the difficult aspect there. Saturn conjunct Pluto, also ruling the third house, third and fourth, is going to show a lot of difficulty around childhood, with Saturn being in detriment. So not just his mom, but also North Node is you know, South Node is conjunct the MC, North Node conjunct the IC. So whatever. So in South Node represents early childhood. So his early childhood is in public life, meaning it's opposite to home life, meaning the home life is fairly absent. That's the thing about the North Node position for somebody who's young. It's an area that's missing. It's kind of missing. So North Node in the fourth house means he didn't really have much of a home growing up. He was thrust out into the public arena, which is not really great for a child, you know, to be out in the streets, to be out in the public, but he did rise to early career success. And also Neptune is conjunct the ascendant in Leo. And so that also is an indication of early fame. And he started singing when he was young, and he gained pretty, you know, moderate success from an early age. It's also part of this really intense square between Saturn, sorry, not Saturn, Jupiter, Chiron, Sun, and Mercury. And it's becoming public and part of this Neptune, because it's I don't know what shape that there's no name for it. It's a square and two sesquic squares, but really intensely. So this shows public tension coming out in public, right? And he was known for his violent outbursts. He was known for you know, verbal assaults, and even, I think, probably even physical assaults, which ties in with his association with the Italian mafia. I think he rubbed elbows with them, but I don't think there was any like deep involvement. He was pretty much a humanitarian, which you can see with this Jupiter and Pisces. He actually really cared about minority groups, blacks, Jews, You know, JFK he was very supportive of JFK. So I think like he had a really developed sense of humanity, but his personality wise was just like very tense and very irritable. He was a total perfectionist, um, which I think has to do with, I was looking for, you know, when I read that he was such a perfectionist, I was looking for Virgo, but I guess because Mercury is conjunct the sun, and then there's these really tight aspects that, you know, involving Neptune. Neptune often involves the arts, creativity, music, movies. He did movies as well. I'm sure you know that. But music was his main thing. So like this really tense aspect with the MC and Neptune, I think is what made him such a perfectionist. Mercury, Jupiter, and Pisces. Like he had an excellent ear for music. Jupiter and Pisces. Jupiter ruling the second house. And it's probably Venus in Capricorn because it is an earth sign. So still it's like it's got that you know, Venus is very creative and the earth signs are very practical and precision oriented, right? They're very grounded. So not really much Virgo action, but definitely probably the Capricorn did help. And yeah, and also the South Node conjunct Neptune in Leo. Leo is very creative. South Node is what we naturally come into this world with, the skills that we bring into this world. So he's very naturally Neptunian. That creative mind, imagination. Mars in Leo, also being very creative, mechanical. He couldn't read music, but he had a very natural ear for hearing music. And a lot of people said so, not just, you know, wishful thinking. Wasn't just a good voice. He really knew music very well. Then he's got his North Node in the fourth house conjunct Uranus in Aquarius. So Uranus is the co-ruler of Aquarius. So this is very prominent. And this shows that as he got older, he really became very unique, original, independent, and a brilliant mind as applied to his career. You know, just a standout, you know, one of a kind. That's Uranus. Uranus is one of a kind. Doesn't follow anyone, doesn't follow anything, can't be followed, just unique, completely individual. And in the fourth house also shows his ties to Las Vegas because, you know, casinos and, you know, nightclub performances and things like that. The fourth house is, you know, brick and mortar. It's home, but it's also brick and mortar. It's also politics. And he was very political. He never ran for office, but he was very politically motivated and involved. But also like his ties to, you know, the actual buildings itself. Like he went through a career slump and then he moved to Vegas or, you know, signed contracts in Vegas. So in Vegas is all about the, you know, the actual buildings like casinos and nightclubs and performances in having to do with that. And I believe that that's what that is. I think sometimes you see this with nighttime performers as well, because fourth house, it relates to nighttime. So nighttime in a brick and mortar building is can be very prominent for you know, fourth house activation accentuation. Also fourth house is where the heart is, you know, home is where the heart is. So there's a lot of heart and creativity whenever the fourth house is activated, planets in the fourth house. So that as well is prominent here. Sun is ruling the 10th house in the second house in the fifth house, fifth lord in the fifth house. These are all very, I mean, very appropriate for somebody like Frank Sinatra. ascendant lord in the third house. Venus is not, it doesn't do great in Capricorn, but it's not terrible. Yeah, it's just it's neutral. So it's expression. And but then if we take this to be a second ascendant lord, that's going into the 10th house. And that's, you know, Mars and Leo is very proud, fights for honor, fights for its own dignity and self-worth and pride. But this is a real doozy as well, and probably relates to his you know, he was I think officially religious, but he wasn't religious. And Saturn definitely will negate wherever it sits, especially if it's not in good dignity. So this kind of prohibits, you know, and also being conjunct Pluto, we wouldn't want this any closer, because the closer you get malefics, you know, like Saturn, Mars, Saturn, Pluto, Mars, Pluto, the worse it is, the more dangerous it is. That's, you get like criminal behavior when you get these heavy malefics really tightly square or conjunct, or sometimes like fighters like Bruce Lee or something like that, like really intense fighters, but it can create a lot of violence. But it is a potentially violent aspect, or a very heavy, serious one. Sometimes not, it's not always violent. Sometimes people will have these really intense aspects that it just makes them overly serious and hardworking, workaholic. And he was a workaholic too, right? He supposedly slept till, you know, like 4 hours a night. Only slept 4 hours a night. Just, you know, worked constantly and perfectionist, and that's part of this intense seriousness, and also this square formation, 1 square and 2.5 square. So and then this Saturn opposite Venus, which is, it's just difficult. He shows a difficult relationship with women, and he also had extramarital affairs. One of the women he married was Mia Farrow, and some have said Mia Farrow might be Frank Sinatra's. Ronan Farrow might be Frank Sinatra's son. So Ronan Farrow is like a Hollywood media reporter who reports on all of Hollywood's dirty deeds, which is interesting. Anyway, and also Woody Allen, I guess, was married to Mia Farrow. So don't know who Ronan Farrow's father is, but anyway, let's see. Pluto's got a nice trine with the that's not really trine, I guess the light trine to the ascendant and to the moon. But also these Saturn's retrograde. And Saturn retrograde is pretty defiant, because Saturn is the rules, Saturn is the authority, the leadership, and when it's retrograde, it definitely creates that a real tension where leadership is kind of going against itself, or like, I don't know how to explain it. Best example I can put is well, Jim Jones had it, and so did Sean Connery, right? These are just very defiant, kind of bossy type people. But his Saturn's not in good dignity here, so it's amazing that he got such. He doesn't feel like he has a lack of authority. In other words, Frank Sinatra, to me, feels authoritative, and that might be because Saturn is widely conjunct Pluto. That the Pluto gives his Saturn a lot of depth, because I think Saturn, without good dignity, feels like there's no authority there. They made that case with Steve Martin, who's a funny guy, you know, but doesn't feel very authoritative. Frank feels pretty authoritative, and I think that might be because Pluto is here. And maybe the retrograde also helps as well. In any case, let's look at his Draconic chart. So ascendant, his Draconic ascendant is right conjunct his sun, really emphasizing his sun. And then if we look here, North Node conjunct Draconic sun. So his sun is very accentuated in both cases, and that really is relevant for somebody like Frank Sinatra, for anyone who's famous, you know, for fame. Sun will represent Sun and Leo, and the MC, the IC, not the IC, the ascendant as well, but the sun is very prominent for gaining fame and notoriety. So we're seeing a strong emphasis of that in both in his Draconic overlay. Excuse me. Venus conjunct Moon, that's additionally very creative, also shows a kind of dependency, emotional dependency on women. But Venus is in Pisces here, so that is adding to his creativity in the 5th house, so it's very prominent. Moon, Chiron, Jupiter in the 7th house. That is also very relevant for somebody who is a performer, because, you know, not just 10th house, but also 7th house is very, comes into play a lot for that kind of thing. It's, you know, it's angular, so all the angles, but, you know, when you're building relationships with the crowd, you know, it's not just the 10th house, it's also 7th house. It's also 10th house from the 10th house, you count. So it's the career of the career. So that's prominent, you know, and Aries moon also very aggressive. But Jupiter in the 7th is very generous to others, and he was noted for being very generous. I mean, he was emotionally, you know, very kind of unstable. That's Pisces moon. I mean, not only Pisces moon, but that is one quality of Pisces moon, is that emotional instability, but highly creative as well. But as well as being very generous. Jupiter in the 7th is very generous. This is also square the nodes, and Jupiter is ruling his 2nd house and dispositing his Sun and Mercury and his ascendant in his Draconic chart. So Jupiter is quite important for him. Squaring the nodes shows that there's some strong, faded, but tense relationship with the past and the future. It's kind of like it's the square to the nodes is very obfuscated. It's very difficult to define how it shows up in a person's life. The only thing I can say is that it does come up. It does play an important role. It's part of the person's fate, part of their destiny. In some way or another, you see it very prominent in their life. It's not South Node, it's not North Node, it's something in between, and something that's kind of tense in between both that needs to be resolved. But it is part of the nodal contact. So it is blowing it up to an extent. So making him more Jupiterian, if only draconically. Then Pluto and Leo in the 10th, pretty close to Mars. Again, that temper, that fierceness, that fierce tense. I mean, if you listen to Frank Sinatra, he's not just like this great singer. It's also like there's this quality where this tension that you feel like he could explode on you, like he could do something violent, and like, you know, there's this weird air about him that's like edgy and dangerous, right? I don't know if you notice that, but other people have commented that's partially with the Scorpio ascendant, not Scorpio ascendant, but Scorpio in the 1st house. But I think also the Draconic chart is giving the air of that, you know, it's not, we don't outright see the Draconic chart, but we can feel it. Right? We can feel the Draconic chart just like they can feel it from the inside. And this Pluto Mars conjunction in Leo is like, whoa, buddy, get a hold of your pride there, because if you insult Frank Sinatra, at the very least you'll get a verbal assault. Maybe he'll punch you in the mouth. So anyway, and then here we get a strong Virgo influence with the MC, Neptune, and Saturn. And so there is that Virgo influence. It's not just Venus and Capricorn. So some of that criticality is coming from this 11th house Virgo in Draconic. With Neptune relating to the arts, MC, his career. Anyway. And then Mars in the 12th. It's not really doing much there. So, I mean, it's probably not very, but it is, I guess, within 10 degrees of the ascendant. So there is probably something of that. And you can feel that too. I mean, that's, and if we take Mars to be an ascendant lord, secondary ascendant lord, first lord in the 12th, can show going into creativity, creative fields, the subconscious. But Mars conjunct the ascendant definitely has a tough guy, aggressive quality going on. And he did pride himself in having that Italian American working class vibe. Also, the Venus in Capricorn definitely relates to a sense of style, which he always had to be the best dressed person around, like spending all his money on, fine Italian suits and whatnot. That's the Venus in Capricorn in the third house of expression. His expression was very Capricornian. He had to look and feel like a boss. So that's Capricorn. That's my word for Capricorn, boss. Capricorn's the boss sign. So he had to look like a boss, feel like a boss. Anyway, that's Frank Sinatra. Yeah. Don't forget to like, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Book a reading with me, macroastrology.com. That's my website. macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. That's my email. And leave a comment if you like. All right, thanks. Bye.